How do I know when people are here?
I think people are starting to join now since, yeah, we're live. Hi, everyone. And I'll let Jeff take it away. It looks like we have a couple of viewers here. Yeah, 14.
Okay, that's
So,
good. That's all I want. We're
yeah.
good. I'm chilling with my 14. That's a good number to me. All right. Well, I can't see any of you, but thank you for joining my little workshop. Um, maybe I should wait like 3 more minutes or 2 more minutes. Yeah, I'll wait 2 more minutes, maybe, probably. And I'll just talk to myself and not see comments, I guess. I don't know. Let me see. Hi, friends. Okay. Could you let me know if you see my comment? Or can anyone let me know if my comment made it there?
I can see it on my end, but for everyone who's watching, I don't know, at home or maybe they're yeah, in person, okay, I can see their
Okay,
comment.
sick.
Great.
Awesome. We got affirmation. All right, I think we're solid. Coolio. Yeah, just gonna talk to myself for a little bit. Don't know what to do. I'm not a good public speaker. Mm-hmm. Just gonna wait a couple more minutes. Just gonna. Does anyone here listen to Blackpink or New Jeans? Because I just got photo cards and I'm really excited about them. And I got Lomo cards too, and they're really cool. See, I'm not sure if I should show this though. I'm just gonna wait. Do do do. I don't have my phone on me. Okay, cool. I guess I will get started. Hi everyone. My name is Jeff. And I really, I'm not the best public speaker in the world, so I am so sorry about how awkward I'm coming off. But I'm here to kind of talk to students today about internships. I know that they're pretty critical for a student life, and I know that if you've never really done internships before, they can seem kind of overwhelming. But I want to do everything I can to make the process as easy, to clarify the back end of the process, to answer any questions you might have. And yeah, um, if you have any questions, just feel free to type it in the chat so I can see it on my side. And please feel free to ask questions at any point. I'd rather just kind of stop everything and answer everything as I see them, just because I tend to forget the context if I don't answer it right away. And yeah, coolio. So my name is Jeff. I've spent the last 3 years of my career as a technical recruiter at Amazon and Google. I focused mostly on software engineering recruiting and product recruiting at Google, software engineering recruiting at Amazon, product recruiting at Google. I have also recruited for data roles, cloud roles, TPM roles, and some HR roles and biz op roles. So I feel like I've been kind of around the block. And as much as I've always enjoyed, recruiting for full-time roles, and I really enjoyed it, and I met some cool people because of it, I've always felt unsatisfied, just because I've never really got to work with students. So I spent the last 3 years as a side hustle, building a nonprofit called Boba Talks. And in that space, I've spent the last 3 years helping students kind of navigate the ambiguities of early career development. So whether it's not knowing what kind of major to pick, not knowing what kind of career roadmap you're going to have, not knowing how internships work, not knowing how to negotiate a salary, whatever the case may be, I've spent the last 3 years helping students and building a nonprofit out of it. So yeah, that's me. Um, Fun facts about myself that are not relevant to this presentation, but I'm also a wedding planner of 7 years and I play a lot of pickleball. I'm also really into photo cards right now. So if you listen to New Jeans, we're gonna be best friends. Alrighty. So let's start with university recruiting. So internships fall underneath university recruiting, and it's really important for me to kind of explain what it is. So university recruiting in companies, an org in most companies called student programs. Within student programs, there are a bunch of different initiatives, a bunch of different teams, and a bunch of different people kind of working together to help students transition into that company. But that's kind of like their big North Star. And they do so through three types of roles. We have early student programs. So these are student programs that usually target incoming freshmen, current freshmen, or rising sophomores. So incoming first years, and rising second years. Student programs focus less about hands-on work and focus a little bit more about the exposure, the education, and learning through rotations, through mini projects, through lectures, and really popular examples of what early student programs are like Google Step or Microsoft Explore or Amazon Propel or Uber Star. And they look really good on resumes because, they're coming from these really big companies, and only the really big companies are able to sustain an early student program. I want to emphasize that these programs are not traditionally seen as a, you know, run of the mill internship, but rather as a program or like an early access type of thing that students can kind of opt into if they get accepted. And remember, it's more about education and awareness of different technologies and careers and skill sets versus actual work itself. Internships, on the other hand, are more about hands on work. They focus on entry and student level scope, usually over a small stint of time. Usually in America, it's usually about 3 months. And in Canada, with co op programs, it's sometimes 3 to 4 months instead. The scope of internships and the goals of the internships are going to be different across every company. It can range from traditional suite work like debugging and troubleshooting and building great products to something more along the lines of a capstone project that you get to work with other interns. It's going to vary across the board, but the value of internships to employers is that for a very short period of time, you are working in a corporate environment, you are working cross collaboratively with other people. Oh, I should have put a slide on what you guys could do instead of internships. Okay, we can get to that later. And more importantly than anything else, they just are kind of valuable resume data that you would use for future internships or new grad roles. And then new grad roles are roles that are available for folks who just recently graduated an undergraduate or a graduate program. And what makes new grad roles a lot different from entry level or junior level or associate level roles is that one, new grad roles are only exclusive to people who just recently graduated. Two, unlike the other type of roles I just mentioned, new grad roles forgive the lack of work experience, but instead they focus a little bit more on your education, your GPA, the projects that you have, your extracurriculars, your leadership uh, focuses outside of school. And then if you do have work experience, then yeah, they will also focus on your work experience. And yeah, that's these three programs. So early student programs, internship, and new grad roles all make what we call university recruiting. Okay, coolio. How are internships formed and why is it important to know it? So this is typically what the conversations usually look like on the back end. We'll have a leader who usually says like, hey, we want to hire sweet interns for summer 2024. Our budget this year for this internship is $1 million. And then it's up to programs to kind of decide about how many seats that $1 million kind of produces, I guess. So for example, for the sake of this little explanation, each student hire is probably going to be a seat of $10,000 across the span of 3 months. So roughly the monthly stipend of each month would be like $3,333, something in the ballpark. For full disclosure, in real life, this is not the actual number of seats. This is not the actual budget. I just want to make sure that I can kind of explain it. But because of this, because we work backwards from a set budget, we have a core seat total of 100 seats. Why this is important is because when we talk about referrals, when we talk about target schools, when we talk about legacy hires or legacy interns or anything of the sort, a lot of information gets kind of spread that having certain things with your application can kind of jump you ahead of line or kind of cut in line or kind of you have an easier process with the internship, when in actuality there is a set budget and a set seat total that's predetermined at the very start. And once all these seats are filled, no matter who the 101st candidate really is, no matter their circumstance, they're going to be kind of gypped because they don't really have, any way to kind of increase the budget. Anyways, so programs usually just decides how many seats we have, and then it's up to recruiters to kind of fill the these seats. Internship interview process comes down to 3 steps. Well, I really should have explained what people can do instead of internships, but we'll definitely talk about that during the AMA. But what the internship interview process looks like overall, it comes in 3 steps. You'll have phase one, where students will usually apply or students are sourced. As a disclaimer, if there's a lot of students who apply, we naturally assume that we can get 100 seats from a set number of volume, and then we'll close the application. Or if it's a rolling application, we'll just leave it open indefinitely. But the general gist of it is, once the volume of applications are submitted hit a certain number, we kind of have a working premise like, okay, we have enough to work with. We're just going to go ahead and move forward. Recruiters manually review resumes through something called an applicant tracking system. An applicant tracking system, otherwise known as an ATS, typically gets misconstrued as a filter or as a phase or as a stage where we kind of, it kind of plucks people out based off keywords, attributes, qualities, and it's kind of a controversial statement, or it's kind of a controversial system. So I would say the best way I can kind of explain what an ATS really is kind of like a digital or an electronical filing cabinet that we use just to manage candidates as they kind of come in. And some ATSs on the planet are configured with certain product features that allow them to flag certain things from a candidate's application. So there are some ATSs on the planet that will flag if a candidate who applied to an American internship is not from America, or if a candidate who applies for a third-year internship is actually a first or second year, or they will flag a candidate who's not in the right major or has a really not so healthy GPA or any other sort. Every ATS can be kind of configured differently, and every company will have it set up a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, to a very large extent, 99.9% of the time, all of the resumes that get submitted through internships gets reviewed by a real life person. And because it gets reviewed by a real life person, it's going to take a little bit, and it's going to take a minute to hear back from a majority of the companies out there. And it's a really good reason why one of my go-to pieces of advice for a lot of students out there are just to apply as soon as you can. Because, once like we cross a certain volume threshold, we're going to be a little bit reluctant to kind of be interviewing a little bit more people. So apply as early as you can so you can get reviewed as soon as possible, because everything gets reviewed in linear order. After they get reviewed, students get told yes, no, or students get OA'd and then get told yes, no, depending on their performance and their background. Just in case it's not common knowledge, an OA refers to an online assessment. It's for anyone who's in the computer science background, an OA can come in the form of like a HackerRank style test. The actual questions can kind of come off a little bit leak codey. You're expected to finish it within a set period of time. Usually you're required to solve a problem, provide an optimal solution. Sometimes you're asked to explain your solution. Sometimes you're asked to provide a big O notation. Eventually gets reviewed and it gets graded. And then if you pass that OA, then you get moved forward to the onsite. And so the onsite is basically phase two, which is just the scheduling and the interviewing process. It's kind of the nitty gritty, but you get told about your interview. Because of the volume of intern candidates that are kind of coming in, we usually predetermine schedules. So scheduling blocks and interview blocks that students can kind of take, and you just pick one, you do your interview, and then you eventually get your yes no result. I am super watering this down, and I know it sounds a lot harder than it's a lot harder than I'm making it sound out to be, but the actual on-site interview can be structured a little bit differently. So essentially, you're meeting with what we call individual contributors of your field. So for computer science students, your interviews are going to be with software engineers. For HCI majors, your interviews are going to be with UX designers or product designers, et cetera, et cetera. You meet with two or three. They're usually back to back, or they're kind of spaced out, whatever the scheduling block you pick. You do your functional interview or your technical interview. It's kind of also combined a little bit with behavioral interviews. You pass and you usually get your offer. And that's phase 3. Students who get the offer usually get it via email. Some companies go the extra mile and do it via do it mobile. And the offers are usually exploding. And what an exploding offer usually means is that you have a set period of time in order to accept it. You can say yes, you can say no, whatever the case, you do you. But the students who say yes usually take up a seat. So if you remember from the last slide, there are 100 seats in this metaphor. Students who say yes take one of these seats. This entire process repeats over and over until 100 seats are indefinitely filled. Any students who accepts their offer after the 100th seat is filled gets deferred to what we call a wait list, or gets offered an internship in the following quarter. It's really, really rare for recruiters to make a mistake of extending an offer when every seat is filled, but mistakes do happen, and this is usually the reason why you can sometimes see a wait list or a deferment of an internship. Okay, awesome. We have questions, thank God. When does the Microsoft Explorer application open up this year? So I'm not part of Microsoft, so I personally do not know it. Typically speaking, though, I would say all early student program applications will open sometime in the fall. I would eyeball somewhere around October, maybe September, for when Explore, Step, Propel, and UberStar will open up. How early should you apply if it's close once enough people apply? How early should you apply if it's close once enough people apply? Typically speaking, I tell all my students that I work with, that I personally mentor, that they should secure the referrals and optimize the resume the quarter before. And I broke down everything in a little graphic that we can kind of review later on. And so by the time the actual recruiting season happens for the quarter that they actually want to apply to, they would be ready to apply for that application as quite literally when that application opens up. I would say that for the bigger tech companies, you usually would feel pretty good if you are applying within the first 2 weeks. And I'm just eyeballing it off the top of my head. For the smaller companies, so like F500, startups, SMB, you have a little bit more of a breathing room. Am I allowed to say your usernames? Okay, I'm just gonna say your usernames. Lemonade asks, do internships care about program you're in? For example, I'm in engineering instead of computer science. Lemonade, some companies will be a little bit uptight about the type of undergraduate major that you're in. The English usually used for internships is computer science and or something relevant or something adjacent. Computer engineering is accepted. Mathematics is accepted as an alternative to CS for the SWE internships at a majority of the FANG companies. So I hope that context helps. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure if I can pronounce your first name, but Hamza says, I know you are the Boba Talk man, and I have actually used the service before. Is there a chance you could help me connect with some people that can help? Yeah, so I don't really want to plug my nonprofit because I feel kind of scummy if I do, but you can always check out the website if you want to talk to a software engineering mentor. We're at bobatalks.com, and the scheduling process is pretty self-intuitive. But yeah, if you just want to talk, then you can always message me on LinkedIn. I talk to every student that messages me. I try to talk to every student that messages me. Okay, I'm going to move on. But yeah, keep asking questions. I promise that I'm looking. Key takeaways from my explanation before. Applications are processed in a linear fashion. That means that we don't, wait for everyone to apply and then we just pick and choose who we're reviewing. Everyone gets processed in the order that they submitted themselves. Applications, because they're so volume sensitive, that means by definition they're time sensitive. I really want to stress this out because there is a lot of back and forth out there about when people should be applying for these applications, when objectively speaking, it's always in your best case to apply as early as possible. In a perfect world, you would have already secured your referrals, your resumes are optimized, and your projects are well detailed, that you don't need to work on it during recruiting season. And that's kind of like my second piece of advice is don't waste or try your best to not burn precious time during the recruiting season when you to optimize your thing when all that stuff could kind of be done the quarter before. And internships are budget sensitive, meaning that even if you do really well on these interviews, sometimes a seat can't be offered. And because 99% of the time 99.9% of the time we will never tell a student why they got rejected because of business and legal reasons, but just know that a huge reason why students mostly get rejected from these internships is not because of their skill set or their qualifications. Sometimes it's genuinely we just don't have any more seats. um, I am positive that I am reaching to the AMA portion of this presentation. So I just have some FAQ that got pre-submitted a little bit early if you want to talk. But how do referrals work? And I'm going to add another one about like what you can do inside besides internships. So how do referrals work? So it's kind of a controversial thing, but referrals have always been seen as a must-have, especially for the bigger tech companies. If you apply for something and we see it attached to a current employee's name, we're going to be like, oh, this person is endorsed by someone who works here. That must mean that they have, someone willing to put their name out there to say that this person is able to meet this bar. Um, Historically speaking, that's always been a good thing. But now that it's like 2023, things have been kind of interesting in the tech market. Referrals have been kind of monetized. You can find them pretty easily now through alumni programs, through Fishbowl, through Blind, through student groups. And they're, even if you say something super conservative, like 10% of student applicants will get a referral, when you consider how much volume there is for like these internships that are being published, that's still like really high number of students altogether that have referrals. So I personally think referrals are a little oversaturated at the moment, but they're always really nice to have. And in an ideal world, you'll always try to secure the referral before the recruiting season happens. They're great. They're always nice to have, but just know, even if you don't have one, it's not the end of the world. As a personal tip from me to you, I would highly recommend prioritizing referrals at smaller companies, because smaller companies have a smaller people pool, especially the people pool involved with the interviewing and recruiting process. And that referrals from individual contributors like software engineers, designers, PMs, who give you a referral when you apply to these startups, it's going to be a little bit stronger versus a bigger company where the actual IC who gave it to you has nothing to do with the actual oh man, I forgot to explain team matching. I'm not prepared today. With the actual internship itself, if that makes sense. If you guys know what team matching is, I will explain team matching in one of these later bullet points. I'm sorry. Another FAQ I usually get asked is target schools and partnered schools. So target schools are universities that all these companies usually try to align themselves with because they believe that their computer science program or their business curriculum produces great candidates to hire for their internships. Some companies still practice a target school methodology. An example would be Microsoft, but a majority of F500 companies and above really have kind of shifted away to kind of like an open source type of candidacy. Just remember that target school methodology was kind of created when there wasn't that much supply, I guess, of computer science candidates. But now that there is honestly a lot, target schools and partner schools don't really have an edge anymore. Now it's kind of the quality of the computer science curriculum and how they produce strong candidates. But relatively speaking, across the board, at least for the United States, we normally treat most computer science graduates from every school relatively in the same breath. It really just depends on each individual candidate and each individual profile nowadays. But yeah, there are still schools that still practice target schools. Should I apply early or wait for referral? Again, I really do recommend getting a referral as early as possible. But if you are able to get a referral, something you guys should all know is retroactive referral, which basically means that your referral can still be attached to your application even after you've already applied. So even with that context in mind too, you have nothing to really gain from waiting, right? If what I say is true and referrals can be attached, just know that not every company has an ATS, or an applicant tracking system, that supports a retroactive referral. Amazon's probably the most famous one. But in those cases, the easiest thing you can do is just apply under a different email, which is my next big tip. Your applications to our internships are tied to your email. And I get asked quite a lot, what happens if you mess up during your application, you didn't get a referral, or any other case where you need to resubmit. Just resubmit under a different email and move on with your life. Because recruiters will always combine duplicate profiles because our ATSs are usually configured to detect duplicates, based off the region and the full name that you've applied under. And then how do I know when to apply? I think someone here asked that, and sorry, Stars. I think Stars asked this at 2:13. There is a certain cadence that comes with when internship rounds are released. For example, Fang and Manga usually go first. Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Google, and I can kind of confirm this, and you guys can kind of confirm this if you've been applying, that these internships go the very first because the volume of candidates for these internships are so high that we need the extra breadth in time to process all these candidates. It's also a pretty big reason why, Google's internship round only opened for a week and then we close it right away. And you kind of hear buzz and noise when these internships go first, and then they kind of close really quickly, just because we know that if we leave them open forever, there's going to be a high number of candidates. But yeah, there's really no sentimental reason. There's just always a high number of candidates. So big tech usually goes first. And then it's closely followed by big tech in the form of Ubers, the Airbnbs, the Spotifys of the world. And then F500 usually goes with like Chick-fil-A, the Targets, the Home Depots of the world, the Walmarts of the world, then small, medium businesses. And then you have startups. So startups, I really want to emphasize, are always going to be my exception with almost everything I kind of say, just because startup recruiting is a lot different than like F500 recruiting, because you can always try to get a startup through word of mouth, through personal networking, through a friend of a friend. You can always even start your own company while you're in school. And startup recruiting doesn't really follow the same seasonal schedule like every other company. So I would say startups, if they were to post internships, would go absolutely last. If not, just treat them a little bit differently, and that you can always apply to the startups year round, regardless of the season. Okay. I also want to talk about what you guys can do instead of internships if you're not able to secure them. So I acknowledge that in a perfect world, also, I think I'm running out of time. I actually have no idea when I'm supposed to leave. So I'm just going to keep talking until someone kicks me out. In a perfect world, you would get these internships, but sometimes you don't. And that's a completely okay thing to do. You can offset the lack of an internship with something else. For the computer science majors in the conversation, these usually come in the form of working on projects. So typically speaking, we usually encourage students to have a wide breadth of technology. You sometimes can hear that we rather have specialized projects, but it's kind of like two different schools of thought. I'm kind of like team work on a little bit of everything, so you can show employees how to do a little bit of everything. These projects can typically be, I recommend a backend project with an API, a front-end project with the React framework, and then a third project that kind of is a little bit more personal to you. It can be about a technology you're passionate about, like machine learning. It can be a mobile project. It can be kind of more of a fun project. It can be a capstone, a hackathon project, whatever the case may be. The third project is kind of there to round you out. So you have a back-end project, a front-end project, and a third, let's call it special project. Sometimes, okay, what if you have enough projects and you still didn't get an internship? You can still work, you can do nonprofit, you can do hackathons, which are super popular right now. You can do part-time work, put money in your pocket. You can do freelance. You can work on clubs, because clubs really do look really good on resumes. yeah, you can do volunteering. There is, I think, the general gist of what I'm trying to say is I understand that not getting an internship kind of sucks, and I'm involved in a literal hundreds of conversations every year about not getting an internship. But just know, like, it's not the end of the world. And new grad offers are always extended to people with not that many internships on their resume. Oh, do you want to know a fun fact about America? The average number of internships for a computer science graduate is two. So yeah, if you're greater than two, you're in a pretty good spot. And if you're not, don't worry about it. Um, okay, I'm gonna answer questions because I'm actually losing my mental aptitude. All right. Um, Hams, I'm sorry. You said I'm asking so many questions. I'm currently in sociology, but taking all computer science classes and making my way through. Does this matter? As long if so, there is a practice on your resume that you can write down relevant coursework. Because all resumes are being reviewed manually, as long as we see the relevant coursework, we usually will make exceptions. I know that there's a school of thought that ATSs will kick certain students because of their major and stuff like that, when that's technically not the whole truth. ATSs will signal, some ATSs, not every ATS, some ATSs will have features that will signal or flag if a student doesn't have the right major or GPA, but it doesn't kick them automatically. It kind of prompts us to review it and then, pass or reject them. So there's always context to everything. And yeah, so even if you have a sociology major, which I assume was what a stream is. I'm not sure what that means. Um, don't worry too much about it, just know that there's someone manually reviewing it. And as long as you put your relevant coursework like DSA, operating systems, software engineering, um, what's another really popular discrete math, I think you're pretty solid. um, Lemonade asks, how do you recommend going? Oh my God, I have other slides. I'm so sorry. I will do the other slides after Lemonade. How do you recommend going about getting a referral? Yeah, so I am a fond believer that when you are in recruiting season and then you're coffee chatting with people, you give off a certain stink, and it makes it uncomfortable asking people to coffee chat, knowing that at the very end you're going to ask them for something. I think a lot of students find it uncomfortable, and it's pretty inorganic. So I typically recommend doing coffee chats the quarter before you know that recruiting season is going to happen, just so you can have a connection with that person and then activate that connection for a referral right when the recruiting season's around the corner. How do you find these people is kind of, everyone's a little bit creative. So I understand, as of right now, a lot of people rely on alumni networks, a lot of people rely on friends of friends, a lot of people rely on student groups, Reddit, subreddits, Discord groups. Finding the referral, I feel like, that is not too difficult, because I genuinely have a personal opinion that it's kind of given away like candy. But I think getting the referral just requires usually like you having a good conversation with the person, if that person giving it is someone who values connections and stuff. Okay, I'm allowed to stay as much as I want. That's pretty cool. Mark I'm so sorry, Ghazi asks, is there a certain resume style that is preferred by recruiters for internships? One of my friends was suggesting to use a more standard and straightforward resume rather than a creative and colorful one. So it's kind of a mixed opinion, but there are some not sectors, sorry. There are some industries and some professions where a more designed resume is usually well accepted. It's kind of like the cultural norm. And the sectors I'm referring to are the creative sectors, the fashion sector, the gaming sector, so like Riot Games, Blizzard, and the professions that I'm referring to is usually in the design space, sometimes in the UX design space, actually mostly in the UX design space, where they use a two column resume versus the very standard, one column resume. In those sectors and in those industries, I would say, yeah, it's pretty socially acceptable to have a more colorful or more of a creative take. Um, I would say that for a majority of computer science students who are pursuing SWE internships, they are more likely to adopt a one column style resume with, I don't know. It's honestly, I don't really buy into the hype of like, debating about what order everything comes in. But relatively speaking, you'll have your education, your skill set, your projects, your work experience, and anything else at the very bottom. As long as all of that is shown in some shape, way, or form, you're likely doing the right thing with your resumes. I would say that there are some standard practices across every industry that kind of do make sense. For example, I personally believe that objective summaries are only appropriate for students who are having a non traditional path that they need to provide context to. I firmly believe objective summaries for people with monolithic resumes. So, like, not monolithic, I'm so sorry. Mono resumes, which are resumes that are like completely all SWE internships. They do not need SWE. They do not need objective summaries whatsoever. I personally believe. Um, yeah. Other than that, typically speaking, there should not be a student with more than 2 pages. Um, yeah, just yeah. I can't really. I think I answered the question basically, but um, have at you. I also recommend that if you really do insist on having a more creative resume, just know that when you apply to a job, apply with a very standard one-page resume. But when you apply to a job by connecting directly with a hiring manager, feel free to send them a more creative, like Canva style resume. No one's going to reject you just because you use a certain color or use a certain design. That would be crazy ridiculous. Um, can you post the slides here? I have no idea how to use this thing. So if I can, I will. If I can't, I'll send it to someone so you can review. All right, what other slides do I have? What are the timeline of internships? So, so we talked about the order and the cadence of like the company types of when they get released, right? So we talked about how Fang and Mango usually go first, and then Big Tech goes, and then F500 goes, and then SMB goes, and then startups usually go, roughly in that order. But what we didn't talk about is when you guys should apply to internships and the cadence and the reason behind that. So, typically speaking, it is a universal truth that you should be thinking about applying to the internship season, the internship quarter 9 months prior. Yeah, that makes sense. So, for example, if you are going to be applying for summer 2024, you should know personally that you're going to get ready to apply for summer 2024 9 months prior, which ends up around fall 2023. So, like, literally like now until holy crap, it's literally August. August, September, October, July. Like, sorry, July, September, October, July, August, September, somewhere in that breath. For spring, if you're getting ready to apply for winter 2024, you know that you're getting ready in spring 2023. And then for fall, you're applying in winter 2023. For spring 2024, you're getting ready to apply in summer 2023. Please know that not every company has a recruit an internship for every season. Most companies usually have like 2 or 3, but it's very rare to see a company, unless it's a startup, have an internship for every single quarter. That's the only thing that you should know about. So if you guys are worried about summer 2024, you know that you're going to be applying in fall 2023, and then I'm pretty sure after fall comes, man, I don't know my seasons. That's embarrassing. I would say fall 2024 comes next, right? Yeah, fall comes after summer. Yeah, fall comes after summer, I'm pretty sure. And then that means you should be applying for fall internships right when like the winter seasons are coming up. But I will say one more thing before I let you go, that this is not a hard formula, and you will always see exceptions, especially right now. With certain companies, depending on how popular they are, um, sometimes they will have their own schedules, sometimes they have their own budgets that are approved way ahead of time, and they'll release their own internships. I'm trying to think of an example right now, but I think the only thing I can come up right now realistically is Amazon. So Amazon's internship this year is a pooling one for 3 different seasons, which I believe are summer, fall, and I am 50% sure it's also winter. So technically speaking, because it's a pooling rec, you're allowed to apply for fall and that third one, the spring one. I think it's spring. Um, right now, when typically speaking, it's time for summer 2024 recruiting, which is kind of cool. Typically speaking, you know, that's a good thing. Unfortunately, it is a burden in the field that you have to be on top of all these internships and these announcements. And I'm pretty sure I did not make a slide because I'm not the most prepared. But a way, part of it's gonna sound so cringe. Part of my brand on LinkedIn is that I will always try to share these opportunities as soon as they come up, just because I know how hard it is for students to be kind of to set aside time to find these internships. And the ways that I find these internships is that I'm I have like alts on TikTok that follow content creators that announce these internships. I follow the right university recruiters on LinkedIn who will always announce when their companies are hiring that are actually on LinkedIn. I'm part of subreddits, I'm part of Discord groups, and whenever I see something, I will always repost. And the thing is, that is not an exclusive thing to me. I didn't, purchase anything. I didn't opt into anything. I just did it on like alternate accounts, and any other student can do the same thing too. Um, there's a famous, really, really not famous. There's a really popular GitHub repo for summer 2024 and new grad roles. There's I'm not sponsored by them yet, by the way, but there's a new jobs board that just came out that I'm a huge fan of called jobpulse.fyi that will kind of announce sweet internships and product internships when they get announced as well. So yeah. Okay, I think I'm at the part where I'll just answer any questions that come in, but just know that I have a really bad cough, so I'm gonna read really slowly. But that's basically the like the really rough welcome to how internships work for students who don't know how internships work. And if you guys want to stick around and ask questions about how to find internships, yeah, I can totally help you ask that. But this presentation was more for like the kids who have never done an internship before. Yeah, so I am starting my freshman uni year this year, but have to apply for co-op starting second week. What tips would you suggest for last minute applications then? Um, I so I'm from the United States. Okay, well, that's technically half truth. I'm a dual citizen. I don't have the best knowledge about how Canadian co-ops usually work, but if you're referring to applications and refer to like company, like corporate applications like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, I would prioritize applying to those things outside of your co-op first, and then wait until you get accepted into your co-op, and then follow your co-op's instructions to apply for these companies as is. The reason being is because from my back end, I don't partner with like co-ops or anything like that. I just see like candidates as they kind of come in, and I feel like the context of you being part of your co-op would matter much less than applying as soon as possible. I think that's, yeah, I'm going to double down on that answer. If for your specific case, Lemonade, I would still apply early. By the way, oh shoot, I forgot to explain this. For freshmen and sophomores, so first and second years, please know that F500 internships and above, so F500, Big Tech, and Manga, our internships do not target first and second years. You can kind of blame it on that there's a belief that third and fourth years are a little bit further along in their careers, they're a little bit stronger. You can kind of think of whatever reason that makes sense. But for the most part, we don't really target first and second years for these internship applications just because we usually prefer third and fourth years. As they're a little bit older, they're a little bit more experienced. So instead, first and second years should be applying to early student programs, nonprofits, volunteers, and startups, because those are the company types that will usually be a little bit more receptive to accepting freshmen and sophomores, depending on their ability to program. So, yeah, Lemonade. I think with that context, you're in a good spot. I even asked the best place to find internships. I know I want to do computer science tech, but how do I filter SWE, data science, etc.? I'm open to anything, so should I narrow or widen my search? Any tips? So I am kind of like I'm a romantic kind of person in the sense that I would want any student to kind of keep their mind pretty, wide open in terms of like whatever internships that are able to come their way. Please know that in the computer science field, that if you do SWE, data science, or product in the breadth of an internship, so as in the breadth of an undergraduate student, more or less, it's kind of treated, and I really cannot emphasize my English right now, that it's kind of treated as like an interchangeable type of one-on-one kind of translation, as in you can do DS and I'll still consider you for a SWE internship. You can do product, I'll still consider you for a SWE internship. This line has a very hard stop after graduation, and it's not interchangeable as much as it is. But for computer science majors who are interested in a career in tech, just know that if you do SWE, DS, or product, we're not going to count that against you if you apply for one or the other. How do you the best place to find internships? Again, I have alternate accounts that follow content creators. I think that's the more 2023 way to kind of find stuff nowadays. But there are GitHub repos. There's a job board that I really like right now called jobpulse.fyi. I'm gonna type it in here. By the way, I feel like I'm legally obligated to say I'm not sponsored by anyone. Actually, that's a lie. I'm sponsored by Seven Leaves. I wanna get sponsored by the Alley someday. Yeah. Uh, Brian Chung asks, where can you apply for startups? So startup applications are honestly a little bit more fun. So there is no, at least to my knowledge, there's no really huge centralized source of internships for startups right now. There are exceptions like workatastartup.com or well, actually and Wellfound. But typically speaking, most people finesse startup internships by cold emailing or going through an alumni network or finding self startups via LinkedIn. Um, if you subscribe to certain newsletters like campus newsletters or newsletters within computer science or newsletters within the tech field, so usually you'll get like a hot startups to be on the lookout for, which is kind of cool, that you can always email about. But for the most part, there's no really centralized list of startups as of like my personal experience. But I think Work at a Startup and Wellfound are probably the biggest two. Weekly asks pros and cons of working in big tech. Ooh, oh my god, this is an episode. I'm not sure how long. Let me double check my time real quick. Okay, I think I'm going to 3, so I'm gonna answer it as politically right. Actually, I don't fuck that. I don't really work for either of them anymore. Okay, so pros and cons. I'll do cons first. I think the biggest con of working in big tech is that a lot of students will romanticize big tech, and because of that romanticization, it has certain impacts on a person's headspace, self-esteem, career trajectory, and like just straight up expectations of their ability to like program and code and be a software engineer. And I personally think that's literally the biggest con, that most people want to work in big tech. And the reason I say this is because, one, there are so many good companies out there outside of like the FANG spectrum. There are companies that are genuinely doing really good things for social good. There are companies that are there to kind of make an impact on the world. There are companies that are working on like really interesting product niches, like the dating apps. That's kind of cool. And these companies, while might not be a household name, they're much smaller. You'll have a better relationship with your coworkers. They still look really good on your resume. And I'm going to be honest with you, as a former tech recruiter, I can confidently confirm that, honestly, after you pass the 2-year mark on your resume, it does not matter what school you go to, and it does not matter what companies you worked at. After you pass the 2-year mark, you're kind of just considered a mid-level developer. And that in itself is worth more than anything. Other cons of working in big tech, it has a high burnout rate. Most F500 companies adopt a performance improvement plan structure for their software engineers, otherwise known as PIP. And if you have not heard, PIP is not the most healthy model to work under. And then as far as pros go, I accept that we live in a society, and that big tech does look really good on resumes. Most recruiters are not tech literate, so a lot of recruiters do look for certain keywords like big tech companies, and they immediately think that these candidates are really strong. And it's always been kind of seen as a golden stamp of approval. Big tech also has a larger budget. Their promotions are more streamlined. Everything kind of has a system. You'll have more benefits, more perks. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can Google this, but I mean, my biggest pro is that I never paid for a cup of coffee while I worked at Big Tech, which was my favorite thing. I'm listening to this from Ali right now. That's awesome. My favorite milk tea is the Royal Nine milk tea, 50% sweet, less ice from Ali with egg pudding. How how can an intern make the most out of their networking opportunities during their internship? Stars, that is a great question. I feel like most students think that doing the job is the entire job, and that's not true. When you are physically in the corporate environment, you have, yeah, I mean, obviously, yes, please do the freaking job that you got hired to do, but also know that you have access to other interns, you have access to other employees, you have all the work perks, and you have people who are legally and contractually obligated to mentor you, and you should make the most out of it by if you are meeting with people that you're not expected to meet with, if you are um, participating in as many events as you possibly could. If any of you played Maple Story, because my cousins play Maple Story and I like using this term a lot, if you min max your internship efficiently, you will be meeting with people that have nothing to do with your internship. You'll be meeting with people that have nothing to do with your career. You'll be trying to find mentors that are right for you. You're going to find mentors that are not right for you. You're going to you'll be told different projects, and if you're doing any of this, then you're moving in the right side. That you're making the most out of your internship. Um, as far as like how can an intern make the most out of a networking opportunity? I mean, I feel like for most students, a networking opportunity is kind of used to get more internships, right? So most people and most ICs would typically be aware if they know someone who's working at a startup or trying to get a referral for a return internship or anything of the sort. Maybe getting a networking opportunity to actually improve your career development would actually not be the worst case scenario. What strategies can intern use to stand out and leave a lasting positive impression on their supervisors and colleagues? Um, okay, man, this is really kind of, and I'm trying to give like a feel good anime answer. I would say that an intern who is constantly receptive to feedback, who goes out of their way to kind of pick up new responsibilities and to a very healthy manner, by the way. Someone who is able to mentor others, someone who understands the projects that are being given, the big picture of everything. Those are the usually the I mean, to be very corporate about it, it's usually the leaders within the intern cohorts or the intern groups or the intern classes that are the interns that usually get the return offers or they get their internships extended because they're doing the work and putting the work in to pick up more responsibilities to mentor others. They make work easier for other people, and those are usually the students that we look favorably to. um I am absolutely getting destroyed by my throat. From your experience, have internship opportunities decreased in amounts since the pandemic? Okay, so internships are not the same as new grad roles. So with that understanding set in place and return offers not being coded as internships set in place, then it is my personal opinion that internship opportunities have not decreased since the pandemic because it is like it's kind of a golden rule that we'll always have internships, but student programs are not coded. Well, I mean, I don't personally treat student programs as like early student programs as internships, but I really don't see internships going away indefinitely, and I don't really see them getting impacted. What I will acknowledge is that return offers, returnships, and early student programs like Explore and Bold and Explore, Bold and Step, Propel and Star, they will all get impacted in some shape, way, or form for sure because of the pandemic. Yeah. Master Ching asks, do you have any resume tips to get chosen? Personally speaking, I would really like students who are well-rounded with extracurriculars and well-rounded with their tech stack. So I like students who already know a front-end framework, and I like students who are kind of fleshed out behaviorally, personally, I guess, with extracurriculars like club leadership activities or hackathon projects and stuff like that. Social good and social impact will always look really good too. Yeah, those. I mean, I feel like it's kind of obvious, but the resumes that stand out will usually be the resumes that have something worth standing out for. So I don't really have any tips. When you, I'm so sorry. When you intern at a company or startup, are you guaranteed a job with them after graduation? Brian, the that is unfortunately not the truth. It is a huge reason why third year and fourth year internships are so important, and why so many third and fourth years try to not have really crazy academic classes and schedules so they can really focus on their performance at the companies, because it is your performance during third and fourth year that will lead to a returnship or a return offer. Um, but I think, as you might have noticed from Meta in particular, that that return offers are really tied to both performance and to budget. And while you can control your performance, you really cannot control the company's budget. So there are unfortunately cases where you have rock star interns who don't get return offers or get deferred. Stars asks, oh wait, I'm gonna check my private chat real quick. Sorry guys. You're good. Okay. Um Stars asks, I've heard that applying to multiple positions in different sectors within a company might not be viewed favorably by hiring managers. That is 50-50. So there are companies that will definitely have a policy to look down, or not look down, look on unfavorably on candidates who are kind of like mass spamming everything. But then there's also companies that have an understanding that students are curious, they want to try a little bit of everything, and to a certain extent, there are there is a grace of you applying to certain internships within a very certain breadth. And let me decodify what I just said, because that didn't make sense. If you're a computer science student, typically speaking, you're going to be applying to one of three. You're going to be applying to a SWE internship, you're going to be applying to a product internship, and if possible, you're going to be applying to a TPM, DS, or a machine learning internship. Oh, and then you might be qualified to do analyst internships. Because you're qualified to do all four, or uh, all three plus the fourth, it is very understandable that we will see applications for multiple multiple internships. In that case, you're totally good. Where the problem happens is, let's say you're a computer science major, you apply to all those four, but you're also like, you know what, I want to like shoot my shot for audio production, or I want to shoot my shot with design, I want to shoot my shot with finance, or I just want to shoot with my shot with, I just want to work at this company, so I'll take anything I can get. Those are that is the type of like application spam that we like low key kind of red flag, because it's more of like you just want to get in versus you want to just get in for the right reasons. So it's going to be different for every company, but for the most part, if as long as you're applying to your general breadth of major and concentration, you're usually in a good spot. I'm genuinely interested in exploring various sectors, but I'm unsure how to decide. Could you please share your thoughts on this and offer guidance on making the right choice? There is no right choice. I am a firm and huge advocate for students wanting to experiment as soon as possible, because you're not going to get that much time in your career, and third, fourth year, and early career, to experiment and transition roles. So without that many consequences, I recommend that if you are a rising first or a rising second year, you should feel encouraged to explore and kind of do whatever you think that makes sense for you, and figure out your preferences and figure out your boundaries. You're not, it's kind of a good thing that F500 internships are not open to first and second years usually, because if they are, you're kind of low key putting yourself in like you're trying to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life during your freshman year, and that's really not that's not the move. I really recommend that not being the move. But during your, I would recommend that if you are trying to figure out what you want to do and how to decide, coffee chats are a great way to figure out with individual contributors. Again, not to plug, but you can get coffee chats at places like me, like abovatalks.com, ADP list. You can get coffee chats through LinkedIn, through alumni networks, through clubs. You can talk to older students. They can all give you a little bit insight and guidance about why they chose their specific career and why that career made sense for them. Yeah, that's what I would do, but I would highly recommend not making a firm decision if you're a rising first or second year. For the most part. Okay. I think those are all the questions, right? We're at the hour. Yeah. Oh, as a present, wow, that sounds really weird. As a gift to all the students who kind of came into this chat, I worked with the host to give you a sign up form where I would be able to share with you a micro scholarship with Google Grow. So, my nonprofit is partnered with Google, and we share these certificates to students who are interested in pursuing a degree in business and finance and design or in data. The scholarship will pay for the entire course. You can apply for any of the 6 school certificates that are offered. It'll look good on your resume. It's a really good way to kind of experiment and explore things on your own time. Yeah, I'm not going to plug some other company's product. Just I'm partnered with them, and I just thought it would be nice to share it with you guys. So, yeah, I think that's it for the AMA, really. So, if you guys want to sign up for the micro scholarship, you don't have to if you don't want to. It's completely up to you. It's completely free, and I'm telling you, like I will definitely give it to you. So don't worry about it. Um, yeah. Brian Chung asks, can you share alternative to internships? It really depends on your field, but typically speaking, project work, volunteering, clubs, hackathons, um, upskilling yourself, those are all valid things to do for an internship. Alrighty, well, it was uh, it was good talking to you guys. And if you have any questions, I should here. You guys can add me on LinkedIn. Feel free to add me on on LinkedIn. Um, I always guys, my throat hurts. Let's just make this happy. Add me on LinkedIn if you want to talk. All right, that was it. I don't speak publicly, so I'm just gonna sign off. Stan New Jeans, Stan Blackpink. If you don't listen to K-pop, stay in school, stretch, drink lots and lots of eat veggies while you still can. Take supplements if you can afford them. Um, Stretching is more important than heavy weightlifting. Cardio is very important when you're young. Um, you're going to lose hair eventually, so don't worry too much about your hair. You're going to have back pain, but you can delay that by stretching. I have literally nothing else to do. Socks are an underrated piece of clothing, so I definitely recommend investing in good socks. Um, yeah, I have nothing else to say, so I'm just gonna sign off. So, alrighty, guys, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.